Welcome everyone to my second video lecture. This is Chris Peterson again. I'm going to be doing another game between me and Billy Wilson. This game is the game before the one that you've already seen, and this is the game that influenced some of the moves in the second game. So I'm black and Billy's white, as you might have guessed, and our ratings, if you notice, are a little bit less than they were in the second game, and that's because we matured in between there and played some other people and won some good games. Let's see, this game was also at the Denver Chess Club, and I believe this one was in June. I was very proud of this game after I played it because, I mean, if you notice, it's a very wild game, and I had a pretty good attack there, and it's a very short game, so without further ado, let's see how it goes. Alright, so Billy played 1d4, knight f6, knight f3, g6. So I'm going to play a Grunfeld. I don't have much experience with it in tournament games or club games like this one, but I've been looking at it a little bit, looking at some Kasparov-Karpov games and kind of absorbing some of the ideas. So I like it because it can get pretty tactical, and black can do some attacking on the queen side and the king side in a lot of the lines. So knight c3 is already kind of unusual because usually you want to get the c4 pawn out there first, and his idea is to play e4, and then I'll have to play like a King's Indian defense, which still wouldn't be so bad for me because his knight on f3 could be misplaced later on. After knight c3, I still wanted to play the Grunfeld kind of position, so I played 5. This prevents his e4 move, and also, you know, I mean, just controls some of the center squares like e4 and c4. So if he wants to contend with them, he'll have to play like f3 and e4 later on, and especially if he wants to try to attack me on the king side. Because a lot of times when you're trying to attack, if you don't have a good position in the center, you're just going to get, you know, brushed aside, like you don't know how to attack at all. Say, you know, meet an attack on the wing with an attack in the center, and if you're not prepared to meet an attack in the center, your attack is just going to fall apart. So bishop f4, okay, just normal developing. Maybe he's going to try to castle queenside. Bishop g7, the natural follow-up to g6. I only took one extra move to play it because I wanted to play d5. 3. So already you can kind of feel the awkwardness of his pieces. His bishop is out there not really doing much. Maybe later on he has a plan of doing like this, but with this e-pawn here he's not going to be able to do that. And the bishop maybe is eyeing this diagonal here, but with my c-pawn about to move to c5, it's kind of just a strange position for him to be in, and it's all because of his knight f3 move. It kind of stifles some of his development because he can't follow with the natural f3 e4, which would be good against my setup, you know, later on after he castles. Okay, so now I castle, and I just bring my king to safety. Nothing too important about this move. Okay, bishop e2. It's an interesting move. He's holding off on showing exactly where he's going to castle, and that's good. A lot of stronger players like to hold off on castling because it throws an air of mystery into the position. Because if you don't know where your opponent is, like if he hasn't castled yet, and you try to attack him on one side, he can just castle on the other. And it makes it pretty difficult when you try to play like a5, a4 here, and he just castles kingside and laughs at you. So I try not to commit to anything too spectacular, and I just play c5. Now maybe I can open up my bishop here if he decides to take. c5 is just a natural move in these kind of positions, because it undermines his center a little bit. Okay, so he's still maintaining that air of mystery with queen g2. The queen on d2 is pretty awkward because it's not doing anything because of his e3 pawn. But if he can ever get f3 and e4 in, he could have a strong attack with h4, h5. So it's not a bad move, it's just following with his plan. And yeah, so I just played knight c6, just normal developing, attacking the center. And now he finally shows us where he's going to castle. So he goes queenside, and now I have to think of a way to attack him. So here I could play c takes d4, and that will open up the c file for my rook. And a lot of times when you're attacking a castled king on the queenside, a queenside castled king, the c file can be very useful because this king is right there on the c file. But here, if I play c takes d4, and he captures e takes d4, now his bishop and queen are opened, and he'll be able to play his bishop h6, h4, h5, which could make it a little difficult for me. So instead I opt to just gain a little space on the queen side and make his bishop look even sillier. I played c4. Positionally, it's not such a great move because it releases tension on the center, but I think just the attack that I'm going to get with like knight b4 and bishop f5 are going to be sufficient to negate the bad properties of that move. Okay, so now he played knight e5, removing the knight from its misplacement on f3, and maybe he can play f3, e4. And do his whole plan of attack. So instead of trading, I play knight b4, which is in line with my ideas of playing bishop f5 and a5 kind of things to try to attack him on the queen side. So he plays h5, which is actually or h4, which is actually a blunder because it allows bishop f5. Instead, he should just play g4. Not only does it prevent bishop f5, but now he can play h4, h5, and he'll have the makings of a strong attack against my king. So his h4 move is a blunder. So now I just play bishop f5, and he'll have a difficult time guarding his c2 pawn. So now he plays a3, and there's a trap here. If I play knight takes c2, he can play g4. But in actuality, I can actually play knight c2, because if g4, I have the absolutely weird looking move knight a1. And after knight a1, I'm threatening knight b3 check, which will win his queen, and it's actually a checkmate if he doesn't take my bishop, so he'll have to give up his queen in this position because queen e1, knight b3 checkmate. So I actually should have played that, and I'd actually be winning a lot of material in that line because he has to do something about knight a1 to b3. So I actually thought I would just drop a piece after knight c2 and g4. So instead I played